you're someone that I know, like, respect, and look up to. And I mentioned this to you before you started. I'm like, well, Steve, I'm slightly self-conscious if you take the course because I feel like I learn and grow
Right.
a lot from you. And so my first question is, why were you interested in joining and participating with Disruptive University?
Yeah. Well, for some of the same reasons, I love and respect you and have seen what you've done in your life. And I know I'm probably not supposed to say this, but I've had a kind of a sideline seat maybe of seeing major changes in your life over the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously interested in that. And I just say I'm always looking for a way to level up my game, but I would say I'm not always ready. And I was ready this time.
Hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? I was ready to make a new and a bigger commitment. And I'm not sure what I've been waiting for, but the invitation was what I needed.
Timing was right.
Timing was right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some mutual respect, good timing.
Yep.
And why was the timing right?
Um, I don't know how much you want to get into, the details of where I'm at, but I had a major career change about 3 years ago, and
Which was?
I harvested my business. I'm still in a transition phase and trying to decide: do I stay with that business as a CEO? They want me to stay on, or do I move on to other things? Do I move into philanthropy? Do I climb another mountain? What's my next mountain? Do I spend all my time with my family? There's just this, like, depends on the day, and I have an answer for you, right? So just a lot of feels like a lot of forks in the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had been effectively kicking the can down the road, and been living on the path of non-committal for the last few years, and it's catching up with me. I'm ready to make some new commitments, and I was grateful for a framework to work through that.
Yeah. Well, my favorite nickname for you is the Buffalo Hunter. And you ought to just share why that's your nickname, actually.
When I was like 5 or 6, we were sitting in a restaurant, and my mom asked me, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I just, like, I don't know where this came from, but I thought of the two most amazing things anybody could be, and I said, I want to be a Dairy Queen runner or a buffalo hunter. I thought, like, have a Dairy Queen store where I could have all the ice cream I want, right? Or hunt buffalo, right? And I've ended up being much better buffalo hunter in cells and creating, finding things and creating them than I have being a maintainer. Let's just put it that way,
Yeah.
of an ice cream store.
I love
But I
that.
still love ice cream.
Yep. Yes, we all do. I don't handle it quite as well now that I'm getting older as I did when I was 5 to 6 years old, but I
Right.
still enjoy it as much.
Yeah.
So I think there's this, there are different stages in our lives where we feel like, hey, we kind of climbed the mountain. We thought when we climb this mountain, then I'll be happy, fulfilled, satiated, all of the things.
Yeah.
And so you went through a pretty major one, which was, and I have the inside scoop, so I feel like I get to ask some questions that I feel
Okay.
like give me advantage over here.
I didn't realize how much I was swimming upstream until I started this business, and living life based on others' opinions. I mean, I had some family members. They were kind but blunt about the new business I was starting, and I kind of had to throw that off, and it took a little bit of humility and confidence. But it was just myself, and it ended up being in sales, which is not that's not a good word in my family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ended up just being like this perfect fit, and I ended up having a knack for building this and marketing in a way to a specific group of people. And lo and behold, someone came along and wanted to pay me way more than I thought it was worth, because I was just doing it. How could it be worth this much, right? Like, I'm not a business genius. I mean,
Yeah.
I have some basic acumen, but that's really what led up to, and it happened over a pretty short period of time, about 5 years, of when I made a major shift. And I would say I'm not sure how aware I was being more authentic.
Yeah.
But I shifted towards something that was it was natural.
It was more
so
natural.
It was, clearly
Yeah.
it was authentic.
So let's step back, because I think a lot of us sometimes feel like we're swimming upstream.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to, what was that? What were you trying to be and do that felt like swimming upstream, so that you could understand the contrast later?
Yeah, I was trying to do business the appropriate way, right? I mean, I have an undergrad in business management, and learned that stuff, and was always going to get an MBA, but anyways, had that mindset, right? And that's how I kind of was doing everything, and felt like I needed to manage, and I needed to that I needed to be a great manager. It wasn't until I kind of stepped away and said, no, I don't know how good a manager I am. When that's what I've been doing my whole career. It's a little humbling. But to your question of what was it? I was swimming upstream, trying to be something that the business community told me I should be.
Which was what?
Which was a great manager, detail oriented.
Follow the rules. Right?
And when I got outside of that and just did things my way, and for me, it ended up being focusing on relationships and helping some people get what they want. It almost felt too easy. It was really strange. I'm still a little surprised.
Well, one of the quotes I mentioned in the course, but a lot of us have heard it, is, if a fish believes it's supposed to be good at climbing trees, it's going to think its whole life it's stupid, right?
Yeah.
There's this part of us that, like, we just kind of have our natural nature, strengths, values, connections, those types of things. And when we try to not be that thing, we're like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, how come, like, I can't climb this tree very well, And that's when I hear you say that. And maybe you can fill in some of those details around what was it about this new business that just felt more like, oh, I'm kind of in my natural habitat and I can just do my thing and it feels more natural. What were the actual activities of that?
Yeah, what's interesting is the part that I've said I'm not so great at, which was kind of some of the managing and the details. I ended up going into it was actually the insurance space, a very specific niche in agriculture, and I partnered with a company out of the East that did all of the back office work. I mean, everything. And I felt a little bit like I'm not running a real business.
Am I cheating?
Yeah. Like, this isn't a real business, right? And I just focused on what seemed like too easy to me, which was finding people who needed the product and talking to them, helping them through that process, and then just taking care of them. And you can remember in more than one meeting when I'm like, yeah, it's not a real business, right? Like, even though the results were fairly impressive. And so getting away from feeling like I had to do it all, I had to be it all, right?
Yeah.
And along the way, right, we've built a great team that does that. That's is under me, but there's so many details about my business I don't even understand anymore. I understand the big picture.
Yeah.
And I'm finally okay with that.
And what it takes to grow it.
Yep.
Yeah. I love that. Now, what was it about that opportunity that sparked something in you to go for it? Because to some degree, you'd been doing what you'd been doing for a while, and we all kind of get into our comfort zone. And then we find ourselves in this, there's like a little bit of a call to adventure that starts kind of like coming up.
Yeah.
And then eventually you went for it. What was it? And on every good adventure has a treasure in mind, even if that's not what happens in the end. There's like something that's like, whoa, I can see a vision in this that excites me, that draws out the best in me, that leads me into action.
Yeah.
What was it that you looked at and said, I want that. This is worth getting out of my comfort zone and going for it?
That is a really interesting question. Like, why I was willing to take the jump and run with this. It excited me. I mean, that's the
What about
really
it
short
excited
version.
you?
I believed it could change my stars. I believed it wasn't an incremental improvement in my life. Like I thought, if I'm successful with this changes everything. And
Like what? Changes
you know,
what?
and that a lot of that was financial. It was
Yeah.
absolutely financial. I was frustrated with where I was at and some of the decisions I'd made. But I think honestly, I was just really drawn to this idea of doing something different. I grew up in a ranching family, hard work, and that's what you do. You just work, right? And the idea of doing something that, yeah, of course, was still hard work, but completely different, just called to me. And it's also why I resisted it so long, right? How could that be good, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's it in a nutshell. It was just something about it called to me, and I pushed it away. And I actually have a quick little story. I don't know whether it's helpful at all, but sometimes those who, and this can go either way, right? Those who love us the most or know us the best, can be really helpful. I actually had taken my wife on quite a roller coaster ride in our life with the different things, right? And you know, nothing crazy, but let's just say she didn't always know we were going to have a paycheck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually decided I really wanted to do this, but I didn't dare tell her. I did not dare tell her. And she's the sweetest thing, but I just didn't quite dare tell her. And I came in and I was talking to her. She was at the kitchen sink, and I was telling her how our agent how it had worked out for us this year, and it had been helpful for us. And she like put down whatever she had in her hand and said, "Why aren't you doing that?" And I said, "Would you please say that again?" We kind of locked eyes. She said, "Why aren't you doing that?" And I said, "Funny you should ask." And like,
Wow.
whew, I get emotional about this. That was the actual moment of total commitment. And so that's probably the reason I was so successful. The combination of my desire to do it and like just this, wow, I'm doing this. I could tell when I locked eyes with her. So, anyways, wow, that's where it started.
It just brings me back to moments, because there's a lot of what you just described that I connect with. One is the frustration, feeling ready for something new, having a vision for what it could be, feeling excited about that, but then just teetering on the edge of whether or not but can I really go for this? And then someone shows up right at the right time that says, I believe in you. And that's happened at every critical stage of my life, whether that was my spouse or a colleague or a family member, where they're like, I see you, I believe in you, like, go for it. That's all I needed, you know? And that's so, I love the way you described that in your experience with Ali on that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was powerful. It was powerful, you know, and I'll add to that, a common friend of ours, we were at dinner, and this was after I'd started, and I told him my goal, and it was a ridiculous goal. And I told him what I was going to do with it and how it was going to, and kind of, he's a very analytical person, and I kind of expected him to say, okay, yeah, have you thought this through? And he just said, that is awesome. Go do it, man. And like, and then we went on, like, he just like 100% believed me. And I remember kind of looking at him going, holy crap, he believes me. So, yeah.
We kind of throw those things out there, and it's almost like we're seeing if we believe in ourselves.
Yeah.
And then just a little bit of, just a glimmer of that from someone else, it can make all the difference.
Yeah.
So to some degree, you're now climbing this mountain. You're on the adventure. You're back in Buffalo Hunter
mode.
And then I would say accomplished and even surpassed a lot of the goals and vision that you had of what that could represent from an outcome standpoint.
It's true. Yeah.
Right. And I feel a little frustrated by that, because a lot of my life I've told myself that once I accomplish X, then I'll feel at peace. Then I'll be happy. Then I'll have all the things I wanted that I don't have now. And you have the advantage of now having gone through that and being on the other side. And it's interesting because you're like, well, now I'm kind of figuring out what's next,
Yeah.
right? And one of Jim Carrey's quotes that I've always loved is he's like, I wish everyone could be rich and famous so they would know that's not the answer. And
Yeah.
so to hear
Yeah.
you say, well, timing for Disruptive University was interesting because I kind of climbed this mountain and to some degree accomplished that, but now I'm kind of wondering what's next.
Yeah.
Right? And so what's it like on the other side of that when you kind of had the dream, you went for it, and what's it like to experience that?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be real. I'll be very real with it. I had no idea what a loss of purpose I would feel, because it is this shiny dream, and I accomplished it, and the universe aligned to deliver a really great present to me, right? And what I'd always wanted, and it's in some ways it's actually felt a little lonely because I had a hard time knowing who to talk to about some things, right? But by and large, I just realized it's another mountain, and I've discovered how unfulfilling just biding my time is.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of stress, building what I built. And so the thought is, oh, well, let's avoid that stress. And then there's no fulfillment when, for me, I'm not, having a lot of fulfillment when I'm just thinking about the next vacation.
Right.
Right. And so those shiny things lose their savor without working towards something. So there's more mountains to climb. They're just so different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I sometimes relate to my kids I have a few kids who just graduated from college, and a few that are just on the front end of college, and they're like, what should I do with my life? And I'm thinking, good question. I'm trying to figure that out too. There's so many options.
It doesn't change when you're a middle-aged man to figure out the same, what do I want to be when I grow up?
It took me the scenic route to get there. I think part of what I'm saying is it's almost like walking into Cheesecake Factory again, and I have no idea what to do.
There's a lot of things on that menu.
Yes. And it's paralyzing a little bit versus, I knew what I was, I was trying to climb this specific mountain before. So that's maybe been the most interesting thing.
Well, what I'm hearing from you is it was very purpose-giving when you had that clarity.
Yeah.
And on the other side of that, you're like, hey, it's all still good. There's nothing wrong here.
No.
But there isn't that thing that is calling to you, giving you a lot of purpose and energy in your day-to-day activities.
Right.
And that's kind of what led you to, hey, I think I'm ready to start re-exploring.
Yep.
The Cheesecake Factory menu of all options, which one's calling to me now?
And let's find something that's exciting and lean into it.
Yeah.
And that's why Disruptive University was so timely for me. Is for months now I've been feeling, okay, it's time to lean in, Steve. It's time to lean in, and this was a great framework to start processing that.
That's cool. So what have you landed on? Because this is a process, not a perfect.
Yeah.
Right? So as you've started to explore this, what have you felt yourself holding back in? What have you felt yourself interested in? As you've explored, hey, what is that next mountain? What is that thing that gives me purpose and energy that I want to work towards next? What have you discovered along the way so far?
This will probably sound generic, because I flip back and forth from hey, I'm going to be, I'm going to focus on charity and we're going to go do this, to, I have an idea for $1 billion company. I think it'll work, and we'll have meetings and I think my wife's just sure I have a split personality, because, I'll come home one day just on cloud 9 about this thing that makes no money, but I'm excited to build it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the next day I'm just feel like I have no purpose, right? Depending on what I've been working on. Maybe it's even something that makes money, but it doesn't fulfill me. So what I have landed on is I love to create and, frankly, disrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Like what I did.
Good word.
It is a good word here. I like to disrupt industries. That's what I did this last time. And so I've got a plan I'm working on right now that gives me a lot of energy in disrupting another industry. But again, it's like a moonshot right now.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't care. It's kind of fun. But I'm all over the place, Jake, is the real answer. Like you said, where have I landed? I would say I'm working on the airplane and it's flying.
Yeah. Hey, I honestly think that is the adventure, because you probably didn't have as much clarity as you now have about the adventure you went on with the last business that you built. You felt it, you heeded the call, but it materialized with each step along the way. Yeah. And it sounds like, well, just because you've done it once doesn't mean the next time is you can totally see the end from the beginning and there's no adventure to go on.
Right. I love that you brought up adventure. And through this process, I discovered I think it's actually my top core value, which a little bit surprised me. But if you look at my life, and it shouldn't be, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as you explore this new adventure, how do you stay in the zone of, hey, it doesn't feel like I'm swimming upstream? Because in the course, we explore things like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What are your values? How do you want to serve the world? How do you want to make money? And I don't want to pigeonhole you into any of those areas, but maybe just broadly ask the question, how do you show up maybe with some increased awareness and staying in the zone that gives you energy versus trying to be that analytical manager again?
I love the question, and it maybe is the most significant thing, and Disruptives help me recognize that, is getting to know yourself, know myself, and some of the tools you use in Disruptive help identify maybe some of the gut instincts you're aware of, but it helps identify them. Yeah, I mean, probably the best way to put it is, for me, some of these tools that identify where I thrive, or at least where I like to live, give me license and permission to live in that area.
Yeah, to be you.
To be me, yeah. Yeah. And you know how I have this inner voice of appropriate, like I'm constantly fighting against, right? So like to have something that helps me go, yeah, it's totally okay for you to be you. You're not being neglectful. That's huge.
Well, that is the belief that we're aiming to knock over in this world, which is, in order to be successful personally and professionally, I need to be what I think other people want me to be. Oftentimes,
Right.
it's not even what they actually want us to be.
Right.
It's just what we think they want us to be.
Yeah.
And we carry that belief, and life feels kind of heavy, versus the new belief, which is, I will be most successful personally and professionally when I'm me.
Yeah.
Right? Do you believe that?
I do. And I wanted to believe it before. I really believe it now, right? Doesn't mean I don't fight against it every single day, right?
Yeah.
But I feel we're all here on earth to share what we have with people, right? Like what we're naturally good at, or how we connect with people. And you can connect with people I can't, and I can connect with people that you can't in a different way. And
Totally.
getting real about that, and having it be okay that, like, you know what, I can't connect the way you can, Jake. That's okay.
Well, and I think that comes back to the gift of, especially as entrepreneurs, it can be really easy to say, in order to serve the world, I need to be great at everything. I need to be the Superman that has it all figured out.
Right.
But when they launched Superman and he was that character, everyone stopped watching because he had no weaknesses.
Oh, that's right.
Right? So they had to give him a weakness. And we forget
Humanize him.
that the gift that we give to everyone are our strengths. And by being vulnerable about our weaknesses, saying, can you serve me in your strengths where I'm weak, so I can serve you in my strengths where you're weak? And that's where like really healthy relationships start to develop. And so as an entrepreneur, or just in life, maybe even outside of work, how have you allowed other people to start seeing the parts of you that are your weaknesses and allowing them to serve those?
Wow. I love how you didn't ask, am I?
You wouldn't be successful if you weren't.
As far as how I'm letting others help me, in many ways, it's simply I've hired some people I wouldn't have hired in the past to do jobs that I always did. I always went to the bank. I was always that relationship and made sure the pro formas are right. I've said, I'm good at that, but I'm not great at it. And so I brought someone in that does all that. When it comes to the quotes we run for all of our customers, I have grit. Like, I would stay up all night and get those suckers done, right? Now I have guys so much smarter than me getting it done, in an hour. And I get to focus on the part where I'm talking to the customer. And so I don't know if that was what you were looking for, but just, I don't know everything and I'm not best at everything. I think for a long time, Jake, I mistook grit for, I don't want to say capability, but like that meant I was good at something.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're talking about swimming upstream.
That's a total swim upstream feel.
Yeah.
Grit and grind.
So I have grit. I grew up on a ranch. I know how to grit it out. And I was doing a lot of things I'm not very good at, really, I guess if we get real about it.
Uh-huh.
And so I have people do all kinds of things for me that I never used to. And yeah.
And here's the funny part is I used to think, well, at some point everyone's going to realize they can just do the things I do and I won't have a business anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And then to realize everyone's like, Jake, I don't want your life with a 10-foot pole. I actually love doing these things that you don't like doing. I'm like, for real? You like that part?
Yeah.
I'm like, thank goodness, because that's like, I don't like my life when I'm doing these things and you love it and you don't want to do the things that I do. Oh my goodness. Like,
I love it. I used to think, so in my business, I used to think that everyone wanted to talk to the customer and keep, in these, especially the big relationships. I deal with the big relationships now because it feels like cheating to me. Like it's real natural, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a great guy that does the data analysis for me, but he's really personable too. But come to find out, he hates that part of talking to the customers and being responsible for how they react. And he loves doing his part, the part I hated. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Amen to that. So there a couple of quick questions that I want to hit on is you had to get pretty clear with the end in mind when you thought about, in the end, what would I hope people say about me when I'm gone, right? And I'm kind of curious, what did you land on with that? What do people say about the buffalo hunter when he's not around anymore?
They say he was a lifter, that I lifted, and that while I took risks, those were in business, but I cherished relationships. But I'd say the number one thing is that I lifted. That's what I want to be known for. And I can think in my life of a lot of ways I have and a lot of ways I haven't. Mm-hmm. Thank heavens I'm not dead yet. I actually had an interesting experience. I ended up, kind of by chance, nothing's by chance, but I ended up at the cemetery when I wrote my obituary.
Oh, wow.
Sat next to my grandma and grandpa. And so that was kind of fun just to think about the legacy they left. And I landed on lifting. I want to be a lifter.
Yeah. Well, as someone that gets to spend time with you, I would say that's true for me.
Well, thank you.
And I think you do that in a lot of deep and profound ways. And you do it in like a lot of really fun ways as well. Because when I think of Steve, I think of fun. First is the first word that comes to mind.
Scuba Steves. That's what my kids. That's what my kids call fun dad is Scuba Steve.
Scuba Steve. Because I've never met someone that just in a moment, hey, let's do this. It's going to be fun. Let's just go and we'll figure it out later. But I love that. One other thing that I did want to ask you is we practice a lot of times awareness, honesty, and responsibility. And I find myself wanting to ask you, maybe where did you struggle? Where did you notice yourself struggling to be honest with yourself about life, where you're at, what's next as you went through this first course?
You have to be honest about being honest.
And while you're thinking about that, there's always a payoff to everything that we do.
Yeah.
And so there's a reason why you've enjoyed not committing to the next thing
Yeah.
or feeling like maybe stuck here or whatever. It's not something that's happening to us. It's something that we're choosing because there's some sort of payoff to that.
Yeah.
And what have you had to maybe get a little bit more real with yourself about and be more honest?
So I love it. I think the thing that was maybe the most profound, but also the most annoying. I joke, right? That like when a question's hard, right? It's annoying, right? That's one of my teenagers talking, is getting real about what the payoff is for the way I've been showing up, right? I identify, hey, I want to do A, but what's the payoff for acting like B?
Mm-hmm.
Getting real about that, and yeah, you do a great job in the course of making it okay to say, yeah, no, there's an actual payoff, right? And let's not have any judgment about it.
It just is.
It just is, and it's like, yeah, I think that is why I've been doing that.
So what's the payoff you've been enjoying?
So for the not committing to the next thing, let's just take that one.
Yep.
It's not having the heavy stress of making a commitment, not having to keep commitments,
Mm-hmm.
and just avoiding a lot of potential stress, I should say. And yeah, having the ability to coast. And then we just talked about the positive payoffs. There's a whole bunch of negative ones, but the positives have been just, I love freedom, right? And so it's given me a lot of freedom, but that ends up actually being a short rope when you don't commit to something.
Yeah, because then it robs us a little bit of that energy-giving purpose.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if you relate to this, Steve, but so with Disruptive University, and I've been putting my heart into this and been talking about it with you for years,
Yeah.
right? One of the things that held me back is the fear that it wouldn't be as successful as disruptive advertising. Because I'm like, well, what if I just got lucky on the first one?
Right.
I didn't choose to sell it. I've retained it and keep running that, but I've been putting my heart into this for a little while. And that little voice that comes up that's like, if it's not bigger, if it's not better, if it's not more badass, then maybe don't put yourself out there because you might look like an idiot, you know? And that's been one of the things that's held me back for a while in even getting started with the very thing we're now doing.
Yeah. Without a doubt, that's been a voice, right? And were you just lucky? Where all those things again? That's so external focused. Like that's like worrying about other people. And I think what Disruptives help me with is realize, hey, where am I feeling the call? Right? Is this an adventure that I want to take on? Well, then it's worth taking on, whether it is or not it's appropriate, or we'll be successful in the world's, world standards, or for the most part, me judging myself. But yeah.
So what would progress a year from now look like that you're proud of in a next adventure for Steve?
Yeah. A year from now, I really love the word lean and engaged, and lean as far as leaning in, something that I'm fully engaged in and creating. I can tell by the way you're looking at me, I'm being way too generic.
There might be a follow-up question. We'll see.
I'm going to backtrack and go a little deeper than maybe I'm supposed to on this, but I really, you asked this question at the very end of the course, and it was about how I ended up coming up with how I feel about myself a year from now, and it was about like looking in the mirror and liking the guy. And so part of that for me is being up to something where I know I'm going to lift people. because I really identified with that as something I really want to do. And so I am really excited about climbing this money mountain and this money mountain. But I want to be climbing one of those mountains that is lifting people. And I know I'll feel great about myself if I'm doing that. I mean, this might sound really conceited. I believe I can make some big money in some things. And I believe I can go over here and donate some money to a charity. My mountain right now is, can I figure out how to build something? And I have a few ideas that is doing both, but that is definitely lifting. So
I really do feel like this is the path of an entrepreneur. Is the first mountain is about getting, and the second mountain is about giving.
Yeah.
And that you're on the adventure of figuring out what that one is.
Yeah.
And but that's when you're a year from now looking at it and saying, that's where I want to be making progress. How am I lifting? How am I giving? So that when I look in the mirror, like I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
The funny thing about these visualization exercises is they're not real. It just tells us where we're at right now. So where do you feel like you need to be lifting or giving more right now?
Everywhere.
For example,
my mind goes to my beautiful little family. Right. I have 5 kids, and I have young adults who are entering the world, newly married, and having all those new experiences. And I feel so drawn to helping them navigate. And I'm doing what every new a parent to young adults does, is trying to figure out where the line is between where I have any influence and no influence. But that is where I get to lift right now, and I've directed so much, and I realize I get to just like lift them. That's going to have more influence than any amount of telling them what they should do. Yeah. And I've expressed to you, I have some desires for some potential education components that I want to help some kids in some different situations navigate. But as far as the lifting question, right now it's my own kids. It's where my mind goes.
And that's what I always love about that call to adventure is the mind wants to overcomplicate it and say, well, what's 10 steps from now? But when I hear you say, hey, I'm interested in climbing that mountain where I look in the mirror and I'm the guy that's showing up and lifting. And the first step that I see today that calls to me most is with your family.
Yeah, it is.
I love that. And because I know you, you probably feel pretty good about yourself looking in the mirror right now because I see you doing a lot of that already. And only you know where you can do more. Because that's the only person you need to keep happy in the end is, are you living authentically and doing it in a way that feels good to you?
Right.
Yeah.